Welcome, Bryte Church, to another devotional. If you can open up to Romans chapter 12, we're going to read the first 8 verses. Romans chapter 12. It says here, "Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. For through the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think more highly of himself than he ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has allotted to each a measure of faith. For just as we have many members of one body, and all the members do not have the same function, so we, who are many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Since we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, each of us is to exercise them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the proportion of his faith; if service, in his serving; or he who teaches, in his teaching; or he who exhorts, in his exhortation; or he who gives, with liberality; he who leads, with diligence; he who shows mercy, with cheerfulness." And the list can go on. Here, Paul invites us to be a living sacrifice. Now, our association with sacrificing is usually negative. If you think about it, all of the things that we need to sacrifice in our life, we associate with this process of sanctification. And so if I ask you this question, how's your sanctification going? That process where you leave bad habits and be more like Jesus. You might start associating that question with, well, I stopped doing this and I don't have that bad habit. Of course, praise to God, and that's really good. But to be a living sacrifice doesn't mean just to sacrifice yourself, not do anything bad. Paul here says to come into a closer relationship with Jesus, come into a closer relationship with God by using what he has given you for him, for his glory in the body, which is the church. If you remember an example from the Old Testament, Abraham. Remember, God asked him to sacrifice his own son? He gave him this gift, and then he asked for it back. Of course, we understand that that was a test for Abraham, but a test of what? A test just sacrifice for sacrifice's sake? No. God wanted to have a closer relationship with Abraham, and therefore that thing that was very, very dear to him, that took up just basically his life, he said, that should be me in your life. I can resurrect, and which Abraham believed. We read later on here in Romans, actually, that Abraham believed that God could resurrect the dead, and therefore he trusted in him. But that point where he was going to sacrifice his son, and God showed him, look, you are that much closer now to me because you trust me. You trust me with crazy things, the rising of the dead. And so if we think about how this pertains to us, God is inviting us to take those things that are very dear to us, those gifts that he has given to us, that be they physical or spiritual gifts, and give it back to him in service. Be a living sacrifice. We don't have to sacrifice all of this stuff for sacrifice's sake. We actually are a living sacrifice in that we have died with Jesus and rose with him. And now what we're doing is living a life that's basically just God-centered, that's Jesus-centered, fulfilling his will. And these things are not that big, if you will. Those that have the gift of cheerfulness, who you will never see being depressed, be cheerful, encourage others. Those people that give with liberality, and he's encouraging all of this. And so I ask you, think about how that process in your life is going. If you're focused on those negative things, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, that's good. But what are the things that you're doing for the body, the church? And think about those things that God has given those gifts to you in order for you to return them back and edify the church with them. Be blessed.